Hi, this is Joe again with another review. And of course, as you see my recent videos, we're redoing my reviews of the Rocky movies. In the previous video, we discussed Rocky 4. Now I'm discussing Rocky 5, which came out in 1990, 5 years after the fourth one. And this was the first Rocky film that didn't come out 3 years after the previous film. It came out 5 years. This one came out 5 years later, like I said, 1990, and the last one came out in 1985. Of course, this one is the one that Stallone really hated and apparently ignored that this movie even existed in terms of the whole Rocky franchise, because he was disappointed in it. Well, he was the schmuck who wrote it. Okay, so he has no one to blame for himself because he wrote the whole thing. The movie came out. It was a disappointing movie. But it did have a good story to it. But of course, you can always nitpick, go back in any movie really, and nitpick over it. And you can nitpick over this one, because this film, like all the other Rocky films, picks it right where the last one left off. And this one, when he had the big fight. And he's in the shower, and the one thing you do not want to see is that naked Sylvester Stallone, okay? You do see it naked in the shower, and he has some repercussions from the fight. Because Drago, of course, he was supposed to be on steroids, he's been so strong, such a strong, huge guy. Of course, he hit Rocky so hard, they had repercussions, his hands were shaking, because he hit Drago so hard as well. So he had all these repercussions from the fight. So he comes back home, and I should mention that in this film, when Sylvester Stallone's real-life son, Sage Stallone, who unfortunately died of a drug overdose, plays Rocky's own son in this film. And it's the only time where the two of them were actually on screen together. And throughout the course of the film, Rocky Jr. comes out to be a whiny little brat, throughout the whole course of this film. Of course, what happens is after he comes home, he finds out that all his money that he earned from being the heavyweight champ for so long and regaining his title in the third film, all his money was gone, was taken by his crooked accountant. And because he was in Russia for so long, with training for the Drago fight and being in the fight and then recovering from the fight and then flying over, his accountant took all of his money. He had power of attorney, stole all of his money, because he invested Rocky's money in real estate, and the real estate market dried up. So all of his money is gone. He had to sell the house. He had to move in his house and move back to his old neighborhood in Philly. And since he had no money, he decided to reopen after 8 years after Mickey had died, to open Mickey's gym. And that's what he did. And meanwhile, all this stuff was going on. The new boxing promoter, maybe Richard Gant, I believe, played the part. It's kind of like a Don King type of a character, and wanted to have Rocky fight the new champ, because in the fourth movie, previous film, Rocky gave up his title because of what happened with the Apollo being killed. So now you have a new, what they call a paper champion, because he didn't really earn his title. Never fought Rocky for it. And so they created a new champ, and he wanted to fight Rocky. So everybody didn't really get a new champ and all that type of thing. But Rocky decided to retire. And first, after he found out all the accountant took his money, he said, "Okay, I'm going to go back to fighting." And meanwhile, found out that he had to get Adrian urged him to get examined, and he did. He found out he had brain damage, so of course he can't get licensed anywhere. So of course he was forced to retire. He had to clear bankruptcy and move back to his old neighborhood, and in fact to Paulie's house actually. And because Paulie, after all these years, he kept his house, which of course he never seen since the first movie. So that's what happened. And of course, Rocky Jr. had to go to the local public school and not the boarding schools or the private schools he was used to going to. And of course, Rocky Jr., like Rocky Sr., who was getting his ass kicked by a local school bully and all that, and wanted to learn how to fight. And meanwhile, that subplot was going on. Rocky gets involved in training a new young fighter who was played by, his name was Tommy Gunn, but in real life it was like Tommy Morrison, who was like the grandnephew of John Wayne, because Morrison was John Wayne's actual last name before he switched it when he became an actor. So I think his nephew or grandnephew of John Wayne, believe it or not. He's actually related to John Wayne, who since died of AIDS. He was contracted AIDS because he was a womanizer, and he died of AIDS. And he was really the last real white heavyweight champion, a white guy who was a heavyweight champion in real life. But he had to quit because of AIDS. Anyway, he urged Rocky to train him, and he does. And meanwhile, Duke says, "Oh, I need an angle to get Rocky back in the ring." And he said, "Well, he used his young fighter, get him signed to a contract under his tutelage, and he got a heavyweight title, and he beat him in about like 30. It was like almost like a Mike Tyson fight. Beats him in about like 30 seconds, becomes a new champ." And meanwhile, all the reporters said, "Oh, he's a phony champion that you beat. He had like a glass. He had so many glass in his jaw, he could be a chandelier." There's all the reports. And Stu Nahan, who was the announcer throughout the first 4 films, plays the reporter, which is what he is in real life. Ask him, "Hey, why don't you fight the redhead in the front row?" And here she comes real cheap. And went, "Ooh," all that type of stuff. And then George Washington Duke, who was the character name of the promoter, says, "Why don't you go fight Rocky?" Urging to fight Rocky. So he goes. So Tommy goes to the bar, which has been established in all the films, to challenge him to a fight. And he says no. And then Paulie tells Tommy off and says, "You just a goddamn joke. Everyone knows Rocky's a real champ, and you're a piece of crap." And so Tommy punches him out, knocks him on the floor, and then Rocky tells him to a fight outside, a street fight. Because Rocky was supposed to be known as a street fighter. Well, they had this big fight out in the street. And well, of course, what a lot of people know now, as well as then, when the movie came out in 1990, was the fact that Rocky was supposed to have died at the street fight scene. He's supposed to get killed by Tommy Gunn. But fortunately, they switched it at the end of the film that Rocky will live. Of course, I should also mention this also was the last appearance by Burgess Meredith. He came back from the dead in a flashback sequence that might have been put into the first movie, or maybe even the second film. Either one of those films, for Mickey giving advice to Rocky. Could have been in the first movie if it was shot, or if it was filmed for the first film. So they brought Mickey back for the scene, and he says, "If you feel," and of course Mickey gives him great advice, "If you're feeling it going down, I'm going to be like an angel on your shoulder," right? He says, "Get up, you son of a bitch," because Mickey loves you. So of course, when it looks like that he was going to die there, Rocky was going to die in the street, he had, "Get up, you son of a bitch," because Mickey loves you. So he gets up and he just beats the shit out of Tommy. And of course, that's what he does. He beat him up. But unfortunately, for some stupid reason, Tommy Gunn got arrested and not Rocky. That was the problem with the end of this film. He didn't really know if Rocky would get arrested for fighting in the street. Okay? Or what happened with Tommy after that fight. What happened with a lot of the opponents in the Rocky films, especially with Clubber Lang, Drago, and now Tommy Gunn in the 5th one, you didn't really know what happened to these guys after they got beat by Rocky. You really don't know. It's kind of vague what happens to them. You really don't hear anything what happens to them. But you saw Tommy getting arrested. When the cops grabbed him after Rocky knocks him out for the last round, the two of them finally and that was it. And then of course he beats up. Then Rocky beats up the promoter, hits the promoter, knocks him down, and then what was supposed to have been the final scene in the Rocky movies, because Rocky 5 was billed at the time as the last Rocky film, when Rocky was running up the famous steps to the art museum with his son, and the son encourages him to go into the art museum. Dad, we're going to be late for the museum before it closes, or something like that. And they said, "Oh, I never knew they had famous." And running up the steps for like 20 years, and I never knew they had famous pictures in this building. And then of course he did a montage. You see the statue, the Rocky statue, which they put back in front of the museum for the fifth movie. And of course this is removed despite where the Philadelphia Spectrum is and all these other sports stadiums and arenas in Philadelphia. That's where the Rocky statue is now. So if you want to look for the Rocky statue, you have to go down to Philly where the Philly Stadium is, the Eagles, and the arena where the Flyers and the 76ers play. It's all in the same relative, like little area, like a little alcove, little section where all these sports arenas are within walking distance. That's where that Rocky statue is today. For those of you who want to go down to Philly and see where the statue is. Anyway, and then after we see the statue, fades to black, and throughout the closing credits, you see still photographs of all 5 of the movies. Because, like I said earlier, this was hyped as the last Rocky film, and I guess what got like disappointing. He got like I won't say rave reviews, like all the critics give it like 4 or 5 stars. And some of them give it 3 stars, some of them give it 2 stars, depending which critic you go by. But it got like didn't make a boatload of money in the box office. It made a decent amount for a 5th movie of a franchise, but it didn't make as much money as people hoped, especially considering it was billed as the last movie of the series. So that's why, like 17 years later, 18 years later, that's when you had Rocky Balboa film, which hopefully we'll get into my next video. So that is my review, a recap of the film Rocky 5. Please click on the video, please rate it, feel free to comment on it. Please subscribe to my channel, and please follow this video onto your Facebook pages. You can check out all my videos not only on my YouTube channel, but at rowdyc.com, it's all WDY, and that's C.com. There's a homepage of the Valley Reviewer, Chris Lee Moore, and please check out all of his videos on his website as well. Thanks for watching, and catch you next time.